maybe help with some of that card draw effect, being able to pull back these Stone Maul Anchormen and proc them.
Yep.
It's just interesting, just to see how it plays out. And this is a theme with Viper. He might bring archetypes that are well known, but he's definitely not afraid to put his own spin in terms of the actual card-by-card deck building.
Oh, I was hoping for some new drip for the Saturday for Viper. I thought he was going to hit us with a new outfit.
Don't mess with the classic, okay?
I mean, you know, when you go shopping for an event, Raven, you'll know this. If you're going to get some new wardrobe for an event, you have to get a Friday, Saturday, Sunday outfit. You've got to get the whole thing lined up, or what's the point?
True, but I wonder if you're playing an event and you win with your Friday outfit, do you keep it on and just say, well,
true.
I won with it, so it'll win tomorrow as well?
True. Also, I suppose it's a lot easier to do that as a caster because it's very rare that you sign a contract on a caster that's like, okay, you can cast Friday, we'll see how you do and if you get through to Saturday or not.
I'm sure that's happened in the past, though. Here, though, with Jarla's opening hand, double Octobot. He has a Shroud, field contact. Looking pretty good here, but the big question, at least in general, Sottle, is how does Rogue fare versus Control Warrior? I know I've run into it a lot as the big warrior, but with Control, the Vol'jin potentially sniping out a field contact or Octobot, or even spell damage. The fact that they can gain a lot of armor, Mutinous is in there, and the Bulwark of Azinov, is that enough for the warrior to feel comfortable?
Yes, usually yes. I think...
I like how specific and short your answer was. Yes.
Yeah, the dynamic is a little bit different than it is with Big Warrior. Like, Big Warrior has less disruption. They have the heavy plates and the rankers to be able to get above, you know, magical breakpoints of the 40-plus stuff where Rogue needs everything in their deck and you still get above that. But they don't have the Vol'jin, the Mutinous, all that kind of extra disruption to throw in on top of that. What they do have is pressure. They can just cheat Troublemaker onto the board super early or cheat Rattlegore onto the board super early. And then they have a clock on the Rogue. Against Control Warrior, Rogue can afford to wait forever, but if you're going to wait forever, you have to then also be playing around the Vol'jin and the Mutinous that your opponent has, and those are always outs for your opponent to be able to snipe exactly what they need from your hand. So it's a little bit swings and roundabouts. You do have infinite time in this matchup as Rogue to assemble all pieces, but you basically cannot use any resources. You can't use steps, you can't use spell damage. You have to be able to hoard it all for the very, very end of the game to get maximum damage if you're going to have any chance. And usually you'll have to discover Mask of Cthulhu as well to be able to rip through the Bulwark efficiently.
Yeah. And one of the problems with having that much time as Rogue is hand space isn't unlimited, and playing minions out without using field contact feels bad a lot of the time. And and the problem is the minions you have to play are the minions that aren't part of your game-winning combo most of the time. So the issue is to free up hand space, you've got to play the minions, which then thins down the amount of minions in your hand, which then means these disruption effects, as you mentioned, hit that much harder.
Yeah, and also in the version of the list that Jarla plays specifically, your second Octobot is actually a crucial part of your end game combo, because normally you can split it up over 2 turns, right? Like when you get the hand that kills your opponent, you can discount it on turn 8 and then kill your opponent on turn 9. With this version of the deck, in this matchup, sorry, when you're actually going to kill your opponent, you need all of your spell damage. And the only minion you have in your deck that can hold that much spell damage without dying is Efficient Octobot. So you actually have to be playing it on your kill combo turn in most reasonable scenarios as well, which complicates things even further.
Oh, there's such a weird temptation there, isn't there, with the Vol'jin? To just bounce the armor, I mean.
Oh, bounce your own. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, because then he gets Vol'jin Crash on board, like... If it was a Rattlegore, I would definitely say snap it, and me and Viper, same wavelength. It's just a reasonable amount of pressure, and he's not giving up that much. At this point in the game, Vol'jin could just as likely get a field contact as it would a Guardian Org Merchant, right? So I quite like this play, honestly, from Viper.
Shrug there from Viper as well. One danger that I did run into when we were testing some Control Warrior matchups is the situation with Bulwark of Azeroth in matchups where you actually need to rely on that to win the game. Fatigue Warlock, Rogue in particular, like these combo-based matchups where you actually use it to buy yourself extra time. You can't play Crash in those situations because obviously then your opponent can just kill the Crash and it overwrites your Bulwark. So I think in a spot like this, getting use out of that Crash first and then playing Bulwark later is probably a pretty smart way of going about it for many reasons.
And the Crash weapon itself is very good against Rogue. It kills everything, so it's not like it's just a random throwaway damage either he'll get. Jarla, though, does get the field contact down and starts to really pop off at the turn, drawing through the deck pretty quickly. Going to Shadow Step that Neophyte and replay. Just to... What does this block actually, Rancor?
Nothing. He needs to do it again, right? Rancor would cost 6 in this spot, which is fine based on the board state.
Done it 3 times though, right?
Oh, has he? Okay, my mistake.
I think both
Neophytes did come down this turn. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Did he miscount a Prize Plunderer as well? Yeah, he absolutely did. He was not able to remove the Crash in the end. He was trying to get up to that Prize Plunderer, was not able to get it through, and that's a huge, huge loss because you could kind of argue, right, he used a step. A Shadow Step is 8 damage in your deck because there's 2 Garots, they each shuffle 3 bleeds. That's 8 sources of 2 damage in total that you add +1 spell damage to. So a Shadow Step is 8 damage. If he's going to use that Shadow Step to allow himself to efficiently deal with a Crash without the Frenzy going off, sick, right? You get all that damage back immediately. But the fact that he did that and whiffed it and actually gave the armor over to the opponent as well, that's a big, big loss in the end here, I think, for Jarla.
Yeah, it's a really big deal that it's still alive, gets the free attack in as well. And especially, it's the combination, right, that Jarla tried to set up such a disruptive turn with triple Neophyte, but left an extra minion up to get an attack in, which then, negates some level of disruption at least. But now just...
But that's the thing, like, even more so than the minion being there, it's the fact that he didn't one-shot it, so the frenzy went on.
Yeah, it's just everything.
Huge deal. Such a huge deal in terms of, like, how much total damage you have left remaining in your deck now.
And then there was just the good old 4-mana Shield Slam coming out to play.
I mean, why not?
There is Kazakus now, and still a Shadow Step. The problem is, in a lot of matchups, this is an insane board for this kind of play. And Jarla might feel he's pushed into it now, but brawls exist. Oh wait, I'm telling a lie. No, they don't.
They don't.
No, sorry, I'm being stupid. Apologies. So it's Rancor as the main issue here with Barov, I guess, is the combo he's scared of. If he goes... What I'll say is all in with this Kazakus, because obviously if he uses the Shadow Step on a +1/+1 golem, to me it feels pretty all in, having used them both Shadow Steps.
Choose soon.
Oh, that was spell damage, right?
Yeah, no, he wasn't given the option.
Yeah, he's going to recover some spell damage here.
Yeah. Using the Shadow Step as well, just to get the Ethereal back in hand. He is going to be set up to at least go for something fairly soon. He hasn't seen any real signifier that the Bulwark is in hand, right? Did it come from Corsair Cache, or is it drawn naturally?
I think it was natural, yeah.
So yeah, you see it there. Poisonous spell damage +1. So he did whiff on the +1/+1, which wasn't an option, but does at least get that 8 damage back I was talking about, having used up 1 Shadow Step for what was a pretty horrible turn, it has to be said, for Jarla in the end. Very difficult turn, but he did punt it.
Oh, sorry. So Corsair Cache, one of them I think has been played. There's also been 0 Outriders Axe played. So he knows there's a weapon in the hand.
Right.
Can make a Rancor work here.
I must choose.
More or less. But also just start with trading the heavy plate if he doesn't think he needs as much armor, if he's going to get a decent Rancor off. No, he's going to keep hold of it. Just clean up as much as possible and replay the armor vendor.
Yeah, I think trading heavy plate is something that you have to be pretty darn confident to be doing in this situation, especially with the way that Jarla's been playing, which is converting early tempo into early damage, but actually cutting into some of the total damage in his deck. That heavy plate, I think, becomes super valuable at changing the breakpoints.
Jarla not happy this turn with the hand he's got, so he's going to get a new one. So do you think Mask is priority number 1 from One Thief?
Absolutely, if you can find it. I mean, yep, that's the one. Yeah, Mask is the best. Ignite is second, followed by like Fireball, Runed Orb kind of stuff, I would say. Even though, of course, if given infinite time, Ignite is a lot more damage over time. Mask just has that great utility of being able to deal with Bulwark in a single turn when it usually takes you 2 or 3 turns at best to be able to cut through it.
Choose soon.
Give me that! Not what I want!
Well, that's a hand. That 10-card hand?
It's a 10-card hand.
Okay, just getting confirmation. He's Mutinous now, and is that just going to have to be good enough for Viper? Rancor for 6 or Mutinous to potentially snipe a spell damage, one of which he knows is guaranteed in hand, and he knows there's a golem in there too.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how necessary Rancor or Bulwark are at this point, because he's at 46, so he's above the 40. He's above the 40 breakpoint. He's not allowing for all the minions in play. If all the minions get to attack, he's actually below the 40 breakpoint. But he knows that both Shadow Steps have now been used. So there's, from what he knows about, there's +2 spell damage left remaining in the deck, right? Which is, instead, that's the 32 breakpoint, which he's miles above. So it kind of depends as to whether he wants to play around extra spell damage from Golem. But even if he wants to play around extra spell damage from Golem, he knows there's a good chance he gets to munch some of that spell damage with the Mutinous anyway. So I think this is a really, really close decision.
Yeah, again, he knows 100% as a fact that there is one Ethereal Orc Merchant worst in the hand there for Jarla.
What now?
He's going to take the armor though. Okay.
My hand
Drop the
is
Bulwark
too
as well. Oh, get out! You just made the list!
Can already hear Derek writing on his notepad. Is this even still doable? It's
Ignite,
not, right?
I think Jarla looked for the Ignite from the One Thief, which was probably necessary at that point, and yeah, I mean, that's twice now, twice in 2 series where we've seen the 10-card ending to Secret Passage, which, you know, is one of the more commonly seen mistakes, I would say, with that version of the deck. You know, I gave the tip weeks ago, I feels like, at this point, whereas like if you're just learning the deck, 2 things to just add to your daily, to your like turn flow chart is count the cards you play for Prize Plunderer just as you're playing them, and anytime you play Secret Passage, just say to yourself, okay, 5 cards in hand, 6 cards in hand, however many cards you have, just log that before you play the Secret Passage and make sure you play around that outcome at the end with all the extra cards that you draw. And twice in as many series now, we've seen a player fill up on hand size and potentially get punished. Absolutely, in that case for Jarla, there was a couple of big mistakes, uncharacteristic mistakes there for Jarla. One with the Prize Plunderer, count the number of cards that you play in a turn, and one with the Secret Passage, count the number of cards you have in your hand before you play Secret Passage, that ended up straight up cutting any chance he had of winning the game out of it. Right. The one with Psycho was a bit more nebulous in terms of whether Kazaka's discounted could have maybe found an out in that position, but that was just a pretty poor game of Rogue, it has to be said. Whether or not Jarla would have won with perfect play against that deck from Viper, which is pretty much designed exactly to do that, remains to be seen. Probably not.
But we are going to be diving straight into the game number 2. Jarla going to be on this quest mage now. He is running the Magtheridon. Not that I think that specifically is going to be a huge factor in this matchup, just because of the level of removal and defense that's available for Viper. It could be if it comes down early enough, but to play it on curve, it requires such a specific hand from mage and one you're not particularly mulliganing for in this one. But really, it is going to come down into the quest completion for Jarla, into maximum burst, or just the sheer infinite damage that Mage is technically capable of versus Viper's shot at finishing the game in some way. But the big fear, for me at least, is the fact that Rattlegore can just be dealt with a devolving missiles if Jarla can get hold of one.
Yeah, Jarla is playing 1 Wand Thief, has 2 Ruined Orbs, and of course a Discover as well along the course of the quest line that will allow him to do that, to be able to find additional tools. But honestly, I don't know if you were watching Americas last night, but we had a bit of a debate. TJ, having not really seen the matchup too much, theorized that Big Warrior would beat Mage because of just the size of the threats not being able to be dealt with very much. I kind of shouted out and said, no, Mage like farms that matchup. And then we were kind of virtually debating it through Discord and him being live on broadcast, back and forth for a little bit because they had some disconnect issues and some time to fill. And the stats do support that. Against Big Warrior, even, Mage kind of farms. And against Control Warrior, right, there's significantly less big threats that can actually pressure, whereas the core of the rest of the deck is much the same. And in the matchup that we did end up watching in Americas, Rattlegore came down, and the Mage just killed it every turn, basically. Right. just threw spells at it every turn, just making it smaller and smaller and smaller to cut into the amount of damage it was actually pushing, because there was just nothing else really to end up using those removal spells on. In the end, I think maybe how liberal the spells are being used on the Rattlegore made the game a little bit closer than it necessarily needed to be. But certainly when you apply that dynamic to this deck, there's nothing else, right, that you necessarily want to throw those removal spells at. So I think even if Rattlegore comes down, it's not that hard to stop it dealing huge amounts of damage to you as the Mage.
I definitely agree. I just think there are some weird things that can happen. For example, Viper's obviously playing a Faceless Manipulator. So if Rattlegore's killed once to an 8/8 and you Faceless it, well, that's twice the problem for the Mage, obviously.
Yeah.
There's also the Stonemaul Anchormen and Kresh that can get resummoned from Overlord Saurfang as a reasonably threatening board. But I do agree in general, and especially against Big Warrior, that Mage just wrecks it. I have not had any form of success versus Mage's Big Warrior in my own personal experience. But pull it all back into this game, so far, Viper has the weapon equipped and has to make decisions as to whether he wants to swing it, and I can't really come up with a plan as to why you wouldn't in this case.
Yeah, you absolutely push 12 with this weapon. I think this, plus a couple of minions, plus a Rattlegore landing is the threat that you're going to need to end this game, especially when there's no early ice barrier so far for Jarla. Especially since there is an early ice barrier for Jarla.
Gonna be quest 1 done.
I imagine we will be seeing this Magtheridon be held for a few turns for Jarla until A, he desperately needs to deal with a board, which, as we mentioned, is kind of unlikely. But B, and more likely, just until he can shoot a few spells at the 1/3s on the other side of the board to create some quest progress. Because I think that's the one thing Warrior does have in its pocket a little bit, is the ability to slow down the quest from the Mage by not really playing too many proactive minions. But if you look at this hand, there's a lot of minions that need playing.
Yeah, that's the question I was going to ask, right? Is because although the plan in theory, of course, is good, right? Don't play minions into Mage. That's just like a base rule right now across the board. But with the amount of minions he's playing, and it's not like if I delay the Mage till turn 10 to do its quest, I win. Well, that's just not true. You know, with this deck, at least what I think anyway. So it's really tough, and I also do think that with Jarla having Magtheridon and even just Flurry, that might be enough to make him think about it even next turn. Just to have the threat down.
Yeah, I mean, obviously delaying the quest doesn't help you do some kind of game-winning combo that ends the game, but I think them not having completed quests by the time you can get a Rattlegore into play, for example, suddenly then you have a clock, right? Well, this Rattlegore has to attack 3 or 4 times before my opponent kills me, whereas if you're playing Rattlegore into just Dawngrasp on board, good luck, you know, you're just dead, right, if they've completed that quickly.
It's just weird though, right? Because if you've not played minions and the quest is delayed, it means they've not played Frost spells, so then you play Rattlegore into Flurry, into Brain Freeze. So like, but that's what makes the matchup difficult, right? Like, is the answers kind of just line up very well.
Yeah, and I think as we were debating that amongst ourselves, Viper was also having the debate internally, right, as to whether he was going to just be tempoing out, playing minions every turn, or whether he was going to go for a more defensive option instead. In the end, chose to drop Ron Burgundy.
And I do like this approach because this is just what his hand is. He can do this, he can go Crash, then if they die, he can go Overlord, and just keep the pressure up. Because one other way, although it's not as common to delay quests from Mage, is to make them use removal in weird ways or non-efficient ways to progress the quest. Sometimes you have to first flame and second flame in the same turn and not double proc fire, and that's just the way it is because you've got to defend yourself.
Yeah. Or like Flurry, Brain Freeze to freeze a whole board, right? Like that kind of thing. Just use inefficient spells. Nothing particularly inefficient about this, though.
And a second Flurry available as well for Jarla.
Powers through questline stage 2. Third Flurry now available for Jarla. Good luck attacking with a Rattlegore this game.
Of course, I'll say the words, but it's they are pretty obvious, but it's extremely unlikely Vol'jin will be able to do anything in respect of Jarla's Dawngrasp finisher or quest progression in the minion itself. One, there won't really be a minion to swap with. Two, bouncing it back on its own doesn't do anything. And I doubt Jarla's going to play a minion and not play Dawngrasp in the same turn.
Right. Yeah, like Primordial Studies, finish my quest, put a lab partner in place for no reason. Yeah,
please
it doesn't
don't.
seem particularly likely.
Yeah. Did anyone order free spells?
Yeah. Just flops trips on the river. Try and make something happen with the Magtheridon, but again, like maybe that is something that you also have to consider because even the Magtheridon itself is a minion that can be in play to be food for the Vol'jin on the other side, right? So maybe in that world it's just something that you don't even play at all. But this seems fine. He's able to play around all of those worlds, get the Dawngrasp down, get the spell damage in play. If you want to Vol'jin that, good luck to you. I think we did actually see last night in Americas as well, the 2 times Dawngrasp coming down for +6 spell damage off a freezing trap against Face Hunter, I think it was in the end.
One thing you learn very quickly is, yes, they stack.
They do, yeah.
I mean, it's been looking grim for a while, but it's looking even more grim, right? Turn 7 quest finish is, I would say, just expected in any matchup against Mage. And the fact that Jarla's done it so smoothly, still we can see that he has 2 flurries left. He's got all the card draw he could want with that Cram session, even Thalnos to an extent. More spell damage, Runed Orb for more value. He's pretty much just already won at this point, and I don't like to call games early, but I already just can't see a way for Viper to even try and get out of this one.
Any board of any size that doesn't involve Rattlegore, he'll be able to deal with soon enough because Fire Sale with Magtheridon will clear it up. Even First Flames and Second Flames with Magtheridon will clear it up at this point because of the spell damage. Yeah, hard to imagine a world.
I really think it has to be something... It probably has to even be like turn 6 Armor Vendor, Vol'jin, Rattlegore, and then no freeze from the mage for some reason, right? Like, that feels like the play that wins you this matchup, but outside of anything nutty like that, you're just trying to skate uphill.
Which is very similar to what Big Warrior can do, right? With Grunt or Coin Conviction or something on the same turn, scamming Rattlegore out into play. And if they're going to have any hope of winning the matchup, that's about the only way they're going to do it as well. Jarla takes card draw there over the Apexis Blast, which might initially look weird because Apexis Blast is damage. But actually, in the very, very slow matchups, card draw is more damage than damage, as weird as that sentence sounds, because of the nature of Ignite. I think too much is made of the, quote, infinite damage that Ignite gives you, because it's relevant in probably 1 out of 50 Hearthstone games that get played on ladder. Like, how many times do more than 3 or 4 Ignites actually get played over the course of the game before the mage wins? But Control Warrior is the one time where that infinite damage scaling does actually come into play.
And often 3 or 4 times just is equal to infinite because you're dead. So, may as well have dealt infinite damage, but yeah, Fireball being picked up as well. All the damage Jarla could possibly want, and this is the issue. Just look at these cards and work out what Viper's supposed to do here. It's like the hardest Hearthstone puzzle in the world, because there just isn't an answer. And to be fair, there isn't really meant to be. It's not like Viper's come into this week going, I've got a way to beat Mage with this deck, right? This is probably an expected outcome, but you can quickly see as well how this type of warrior fares versus many other decks in the meta, which is why Viper has it in his lineup.
Yeah, and I think the way he's laid out the series is kind of interesting as well, because I think, honestly, he kind of threw this deck away to an extent because he queued it up first. He did, of course, hit the great matchup in Rogue, which is a huge bonus for him. But really, at any point this warrior was to come out in the series, the counter queue is swift and immediate with either Celestial Druid or the Quest Mage, right? You can't get rid of both of them. It's so unlikely that the warrior gets in a position where it's ever going to win more than one game. So using that as your throwaway opener deck actually made a lot of sense. And actually the way it panned out for Viper was very, very favorable because he ended up hitting that good matchup with the Rogue to kick things off.
Time runs out on me.
Unleash!
Now Viper does have Barov to be able to kill off this Magtheridon, but again, it feels like only a matter of time. He needs Kel'Thuzad. That's what he needs.
Wait, what?
What now?
Maybe Kel'Thuzad and some provoke mechanics can get...
Oh, Headmaster Kel'Thuzad.
Yeah,
Yes. I forget.
I do enjoy
I was like,
I was
original
talking about a 5-year-old Hearthstone card.
Yeah. I mean, Nax is out, right?
Just because everyone says Lothar, but doesn't mean that we can pick any cards we want.
Pretty sure that's exactly what it means. We will be going back to some classic Hearthstone, apparently, in the very near future, with an America's tournament being put on.
I was going to say, we won't. America
we won't. Yes. Some of America's finest, so, you know, some of the world's middle will be competing in a classic tournament, which I'm very much looking forward to seeing.
The search to find a format they're good at continues. Saul's just gone by the sounds of it, okay.
Yeah, that's it. I'm out. I'm happy.
Double fireball though, what's that, 18 at this point? So that's all of the armor counted for with just the 2 fireballs. Jarla's in a tough spot now because those flurries are stuck in his hand with no minions being played.
I know, tell me about it.
Is Thanos like second flame or something here?
Is it even, like, do you just want to take Imprison Phoenix because it's kind of max damage over the course of the game? Like, you can do a lot on a Phoenix turn if you want to line this up, I think. Okay. I mean, I think they were all fairly valid in that position. I wonder if this means that this isn't going to be Incanter's Flow this turn. Oh my goodness, what is happening?
Go Hot Streak instead of the Fireball. Does that ever work out better? Just for the burst damage? So, no, I do like... Incanter's Flow, just because it's a dumpable card, right? Just get it cast. There's Cram Session in hand, so just get cards out of your hand. That's what I was talking about, maybe even, although it's a bit weird because Thalnos draws a card, but Thalnos, Second Flame, and then just sort of with Incanter's Flow and just try and go from there. Either way, Jarla's still comfortable in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the funny thing about all of this.
Yeah, we're talking about silly things.
None of it really matters. Yeah, I think my head was like, take the Imprisoned Phoenix, drop the Imprisoned Phoenix, play the Incanter's Flow, like Arcane Intellect, dump some cards out of your hand, to then do the same again next turn, and then play the Cram Session on the turn 2 turns from then when the Phoenix wakes up, right? And just do a million on that one turn. But again, I think any of these lines win the game because he's just in such a comfortable position overall. I'm just a little surprised that, like, whatever happened that turn, the Incanter's Flow didn't get played. That does confuse me a little bit.
What now?
Oh, there's Bulwark. I'm even more surprised, and I really don't want anything to be taken the wrong way here, but I'm really surprised that Viper's just still in the game, because I don't know what his plan is against infinite ignites, and I'm not even trying to sound like stupid or winding anyone up. I genuinely don't know what the plan is against infinite ignites.
Well, it's worth knowing
he's making the push here with the Rattlegore, of course.
He doesn't know about 20 flurries because 2 flurries have been generated so far. One from a Runed Orb, one from the questline Discover, right. I think they came from. So honestly, I think his plan is just, even if it's a 7/7 or a 6/6 that ends up getting to attack, it'll get to attack. Cool. I have Bulwark of Azzinoth now. That'll buy me some extra turns. I do have that Faceless Manipulator that you were talking about earlier. So maybe I can start attacking with 2 7/7s, 2 8/8s, right? So, you know, I think he has enough stock in the game that he feels like he can still keep playing here because he doesn't know how much disruption Jarla actually has on the other side. He won't be accounting for 2 extra flurries.
Well, there's a Brain Freeze, so Jarla can hold these flurries if he really wants to. And just Brain Freeze this away for a turn at least.
Yeah.
Time runs out on me.
At least ask the question of whether Faceless Manipulator is ever something you're going to consider playing around. Start cutting into the size of the Rattlegore, but I think that's probably a bit silly.
Yeah, I think with this specific hand from Jarla, he can race 2 Rattlegores, right? Like, I don't even think it's that big a deal. It's not like he's on 9 health or anything, right? That he literally can't let it swing. He can even take a hit or 2 if he really needs to at this point. Still got that 1 Brain Freeze for 0 mana in hand, the double Flurry, which are bonus flurries that we can see.
Yeah, which amazingly are hitting 3 minions. It's very rare that you get to the point that Flurry is hitting 3 minions, but here we are.
Viper committing. You can be very dead. From what, 23?
That's exactly why he was cycling. And as you said, it was a commitment, but that is why he was doing it, because he understands, you know, a lot of armor gain does not beat infinite damage. That's just not how words or maths work. Yes. So he needs pressure to be able to stop infinite damage being a possibility from Jarla.
Still a barrier.
There's still a barrier, yeah. Pressure comes from Faceless Manipulator, so that is what he was cycling so hard for. He still, of course, has that armor gain yet to come. Still has that Bulwark to delay as well. So this is many turns that Viper still has to stay alive here, because there's no Mask of Cthulhu, remember, this time around, for Jarla to be able to cut through that Bulwark.
Also, what's that Ignite on? I can't even see. But that's...
check it for you.
What, mid-20s of damage, and Viper's on 28?
Yes.
Unfortunately, because the 2 fireballs still cost full mana, he can't do any ignite into fireball, like Cram Session, ignite fireball or anything. You know, like the usual ways you get really blasted out of the game.
Yeah, there was that hot streak option that he could have picked up, took an extra fireball instead, which, as you were saying, does increase the burst damage in 1 turn, but decreases the burst damage over time. The 2 mana ignite currently in hand deals 8, by the way, including...
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and this is what I was talking about, especially, I actually forgot there was a second Ice Barrier still left over. But especially with Ice Barrier, this first swing of this one Rattlegore just doesn't count in most reasonable calculations. And then he still has the 2 full lockout turns. And then even a third time where he can... Well, I guess it's kind of bad now that the actual 3 health means that the Brain Freeze will actually, or I guess the more than 3, will kill off one of these and not freeze it. Unless he plays it first.
You can just go like, but you could play it first, or you could like second flame it first and then brain freeze or something like that. There's a lot of ways to go about it.
Well, hang on a minute.
What are we hanging on for, Raven?
In how many ignites he can do this turn. Because he's got 2 sets of card draw, so he can potentially go like 3 ignite. He's got to proc the Bulwark, of course, but he's got the 3 ignite, draw, potentially ignites, draw, ignites. Like, he can maybe even proc this turn.
All right.
He's got the mana to put a ping in as well, why not?
Like where your head's at?
Yeah, look, 2 more. You can draw 2 more again. He can ping, so the last charge doesn't have to be an ignite.
Yep. Still has the flurries, of course, to be able to lock out all of this at the end of the turn.
These minions just don't count, guys. Don't worry about them.
They're just not there. Optical illusion, actually. Minions just don't exist.
Time runs out on me.
One more ignite. Now the incanters flow, if it's even relevant. It probably isn't. It's actually just straight up probably better to ping than it is to play incanters flow at this point in the game. Yep, makes sense.
2 mana. Because that is
and Bosh.
Is one thing you do have to look out for as well is that, of course, the ignites after you've cast them initially are 2 mana. So you actually managing your mana in games like in these sort of weird games like this is important.
Ultimate Potem.
Minefield doesn't like it's going to get anywhere.
Yeah, Viper was giving a little bit of a wince there, because remember, what he's looking for, those heavy plates that he traded back into the deck, very, very nice for him here. From his perspective, if he can pick up a heavy plate, maybe stay alive this turn, then he's like, oh, then my minions get to attack next turn. Then I've got a chance. No, sorry, mate, you don't. There's another flurry on the other side.
He also knows there's a brain freeze, right? Because all the cards were drawn, the deck was emptied. So he knows there's a brain freeze and I think 1 or 2 generated cards at that point. Yeah, there you go. The Arcane Intellect was generated, yeah. But yeah, that is just going to be the game. Goes in the way of the mage as we expected it would, but Viper did put together a plan with the double Rattlegore. Of course, it just wasn't enough, and that was the problem I was talking about a little bit earlier with the what does a delay to the game mean for the mage, because if you don't, I mean, Viper did play minions and we discussed it, but if you try and delay it and not play minions, then surely it means they've got the double ice barrier, the double flurry, the double brain freeze sat waiting for when you do. So again, it's a really tough one to manage. I think it really just comes down to it's a terrible matchup. It's a loss. That's fine. That's not... Viper didn't go into this game expecting to win this one. He already got the win with his warrior. Now he can move on with the game plan and cue something good into the mage from Jarla.
And I think on reflection, he played it very, very well. Again, the matchup sucks, and like, it almost feels like you're wasting your time playing a matchup that bad really well. You know, you might as well just refocus your mental energy on doing just about anything else that's worthwhile of your time. But I think Viper did actually play that matchup very well, because clearly he had a very defined plan, which was suck some removal out of the opponent's hand, right? The Magtheridon, some Brain Freezes, some First Flames. Hopefully, cross fingers a flurry that he can get out of the opponent's hand as well. Then dig super hard for Rattlegore and Faceless Manipulator, right? Like, that was kind of phase 1, phase 2 of the game plan, and he stuck to it very rigidly. There were hands, certain pan outs, maybe a slower quest completion, worse generated cards there for Jarla, because don't forget what, he generated a flurry, an Arcane Intellect, a Fireball. He could have had a Hot Streak thrown into that as well. Like, there were some real high quality cards generated there for Jarla for the matchup. So maybe in a weird and wacky world with a different pan out, he maybe could have got something done. But yeah, in the end, nothing really doing in that matchup. That's just a mage win. It's a mage win at the Mulligan stage, and that's really all there is to it.
And it has turned out to be a bit of a drawback when you look at these lineups, right? Because Viper's clearly, as you can see, chosen to queue mage into mage. The mage mirror, honestly, one of my least favorite because it feels just bad to play a lot of the time, but also just for the fact that he has this sort of newer, not quite as well tested Fel Demon Hunter, and the problem is it doesn't run Il'gynoth, but it runs all of the card draw. And effectively, what would be the Il'gynoth OTK combo, just without the Il'gynoth bit, and versus the mage, that Il'gynoth kill is one of the ways you would win this matchup in previous versions. So he's felt forced to queue this mage mirror, and if he loses this, he's got the Fel Demon Hunter to go against mage, and that feels like it could be pretty rough too.
Yeah, I would like to see that one pan out, because certainly I would say just doing the damage with Jace is difficult, because you have to deal 46 a lot of the time with 30 health plus 2 ice barriers, because all of your damage is melee damage basically, right? Furies, and Chaos Strikes and weapons and everything going through, so you just have to attack face. So generally, actually, I quite like that matchup for Fel Demon Hunter, even though statistically it's said to be favoured for the mage. I've always kind of liked it as the Fel Demon Hunter, because you can almost get there with Jace, and then you just need your Il'gynoth to do like 9, 12 or something at the end of the game, right, to finish the job. But take those 10, 12, 14 points of damage out of the deck, and how are you getting there in that matchup?
I don't know.
I'd love to see it.
And that just moves forward to when you just look at, obviously, the game starting, no surprise, double Incanters flow for Jarla there. But it just moves on to the ban just being very good from Jarla, I feel, right? Yes, he took the bad matchup in game 1, but then he had a good matchup versus a warrior. And then Mage looks like it can just sweep from there, right? Like with the Druid banned away.
Certainly, if you're going to draw like that.
Doesn't look bad, does it?
No. I think cheap minions are super premium in this version of the matchup, because, come on, your opponent is just never playing minions against you most of the time, so you need those activators to be dropping your first flames and your brain freezes on most of the time.
It's also a little bit weird, the fact that both players are running the Magtheridon in their mage, because then you have like kind of 3 built-in minions to target with stuff as well.
Yes.
It's just an expensive version of 3 minions. It's very odd.
I also think the unique benefit of Magtheridon in this matchup is being able to use your flurries as well, because actually that's a borderline unplayable card most of the time. We've seen at a high level, even in Grandmasters, in the Mage Mirror, where there was a lab partner on both sides of the board, and the player, I think it was Bly's, literally killed his own lab partner instead of his opponent's lab partner on purpose, because that plays around 1 extra card being played in the form of flurry from the other side. So generating minions on your opponent's side of the board is a big deal. Wow! He took Guild Trader, traded it, and hit probably the only card that I think makes that worthwhile. Insane.
The weird thing about Magtheridon as well is if you play it and get loads of procs off the 3/1/3s, that's great. But then you give your opponent a 12/12 for targets. So it's like, does anyone really win in this matchup if you play Magtheridon?
I like the phrasing. I know you think clarified, but it's like, you give your opponent a 12/12. That's very much how this matchup is. Like, any minion you play is basically being given to your opponent.
Yep.
Unbelievable. Guild Trader traded into the deck, Mr. Blue card into Mr. Blue card straight off it. Viper's actually caught up a ton based on those 2 draws now.
Does still have to spend the 3 mana on this second flow, though, which is going to slow him down a little bit versus what Viper's achieving right now.
What Jarla's achieving, you mean?
Jarla, apologies. Jarla, yeah. Because again, it's just one of those things where being 1 turn ahead in this matchup is quite the impact, right? Just being able to land spend the 5 mana on Dawngrasp first just gives you so much leeway to just win the next turn, regardless of whether your opponent plays Dawngrasp or not. Do it again! Get another Incanters!
Was there not any way to... No, I suppose not. I was just looking if there was a way to cheat at that turn, because he had Hot Streak. He needs Fire and Frost still. Whether he could have gone like Hot Streak, something else, then Incanter's Flow to wrap the Incanter's Flow Arcane round onto the other quest proc, but no, it just wasn't possible. He could have, I guess, traded Guild Trader again for exactly Ice Barrier or something, but that probably still wasn't going to help out, wouldn't fit into the turn.
Look at this turn. Why has he still got 5 mana? Just drew 100 cards.
Nothing costs anything.
Oh. 1 card. If you wanted to play everything, 1 card would cost mana.
That's actually true, yes.
Out of 1 million cards.
He could also just Rune Orb into Hot Streak, and then he could play his entire hand for 0 mana.
Oh yeah, I'm talking base level 1 card cost. That's just being in the extreme negative view.
Yep. That's so much. Look at all the numbers on those cards. Who pays mana for things? Disgusting. Get it out of my sight. I mean, this is just a plan, isn't it now? Like, are we not just on the Gur strat at this point? Just start shipping damage to face every turn? Like, this quest can get in the bin. Who cares?
Is he not fireballing? Oh, maximizing mana damage.
This is more efficient. Yeah, I like it. Fireball's free anyway, right? It doesn't matter what he costs it.
Yes and no. Like, he could have used 2 mana there and had the Hot Streak for an Ignite draw.
Sure.
It's 2 mana.
That's fair. Yep.
Oh, Guild Trader Cram Session. Still have 3 mana left over.
What to do? What to do?
Got some catching up to do, right? He needs to start hitting Spring Waters of his own, probably. Double discounted Spring Water in deck would cost 3, which would still be playable if it was hit off the Guild Trader.
That's the one thing why I'm looking at the other Spring Water and I'm wondering if that's even worthwhile at 5 mana. Too expensive.
1 mana draw 2 with double flow on your deck. Too slow, apparently.
Well, from what I just learned on Jarla's turn, we don't pay mana for cards. And that one said 5 next to it.
He did only pay 1 for it, crucially, though, and now he can pay -1 for the other one that he has in hand, which, you know, makes it all better.
Imagine going to a shop. Hey, yeah, this is -£5, please. You're like, how do I pay that?
What happened this turn?
Hands base?
Does anyone know? What has occurred here?
9, he plays Refreshment to 10. At worst, he could have played Guild Trader, but that would have left up a target.
But he could just Ignite as well, right? Like, he has an Ignite.
Oh, sorry, he has Ignite. Yeah, sorry, yep. Lethal?
Okay. Infinite. Spring Water back up to 6, finds AI again for once, can draw 2 more. 2 Hot Streaks in hand is a very big deal. Take a look at remaining. There are still 2 Fireballs left remaining for 2 mana each to go alongside those Hot Streaks. So this is a ton of potential damage that can come along here, because Fireballs are free, Ignites are free, and they do very similar amounts of damage at this point. Those cards aren't free. Disgusting.
1 Ignite's not free, right?
But I'm saying they're free with the Hot Streaks. They cost the same amount as the Fireballs, right? So they're free with the Hot Streaks in the same way that the Fireballs are.
Free. Wait, should he have played the second one? Smacks. What in?
Oh!
Did he whiff?
Oh no!
Just
disaster! He had it right, because he spent 2 mana on that Fireball, and as you were saying, other Guild Trader gets in play, and then you just use the Hot Streak on the other Fireball instead.
Or even at this point, he could have done Hot Streak Cram Session, right?
Right.
To draw more and try and hit an Ignite.
Right.
So there were multiple options there that turn, and Viper just, I think, lost control, made the initial decisions a little bit too late. And obviously card draw takes time.
The Rune Orb Discover! No! Viper, I'm sorry, it sucks! Oh, I know you kind of threw, but getting beaten by the randomly generated out in that position is still a tilter for sure. That is an absolute heartbreaker for Viper in that position, I am sure. Jarla in the end, though, able to get himself over the line.
I think it's a tough one, or extra tough, should I say. It's clearly a tough one to lose there for Viper. But I think it's extra tough because at surface level, rewind a few turns, there was no way Viper should have won that game. Right? Like, look how one-sided it looked, right? It's incredible. Jarla had the double, Incantus Flow super early, had access to a ton of damage, push loads of damage, but you can see there, like you said, it was either Guild Trader, Hot Streak, Firebolt, guaranteed, or there was the option for going for the card draw with the cram session as well, even after the fact.
Yeah, really, really close in the end. I've got to give him credit as well because, you know, I was kind of trolling the play previously where he did nothing, right, and floated 3 mana. But actually what he had was a very good plan to win the game. Do nothing, dump everything in a single turn with the spell damage. He just wasn't then able to execute quick enough. And lest we forget, in Europe, if there is a criticism of Europe in comparison to the other regions a year ago, 18 months ago, it's that sometimes our players are a little bit too slow, too considered, and they run out of time. As I mentioned before, we've heard Psycho self-reflecting on that and saying that it was one problem with his game plan that really needs to be cleaned up. Jarla and Bunny are in that category. I would like to say that they are the two that manage to play this slow, considered, rope-based style and not really get burned by the rope in most situations. But Jarla has made a couple of pretty brutal mistakes already so far this series, so it would be a very poorly timed moment to say that. But Viper, I think, is one of the players that has been guilty of that over time as well, with the rope coming into play in certain situations. But it's just the style of play. It's very hard to change, right? If you're a slow player, you're a slow player, and speeding up is a very hard thing to do in the same way that if you're a fast player, you're a fast player, and slowing down is a very hard thing to do.
And also, it's a little bit weird of a thing as well as we dive into Game 4, of course, is that the longer the game continues, as in the game of Hearthstone, wait, I'm saying this completely wrong. The older the game gets, the more complex it has gotten as well. So the more mechanics are involved, and so on, so on. So now, players that are playing normally a little bit later into the turn have quest procs to contest with, drawing 18,000 cards, discovering cards, things changing mana costs mid-turn. Like, there's a lot to contend with where your decision tree goes from, instead of like A to B to C, it goes to a completely different alphabet. Put it that way, where any given moment of any given turn, so very difficult to stay on top of if you've got time pressure piling on as well. But let's get on to this game here. There's a few blue cards in Jarla's hand, but only one of them is the blue card. Did he keep double ice barrier? I think I saw him keep it.
I honestly do not know, but I would not be surprised if he did.
I think he kept flow barrier. I could be wrong, so someone tell me if I am. Apologies, but I think he did. But it makes sense.
I'm actually interested.
What you were saying earlier.
So I will go check myself. Take over for a few seconds. I'll go look.
Yep. Oh, hey viewers, what's up? Oh, damn, he's still here. So again, the overall thought was, if you keep Ice Barrier, Salt was talking about a little bit earlier, 99% of the damage that this deck generally does will revolve around hitting, like, in melee style, I'll say, with the either weapon swings, the Furies, of course, it all will proc an Ice Barrier. So keeping them means that Jarla just buys as much time as possible. And generally speaking, Frost is the hardest one to proc, especially because, again, Viper can choose to not play minions if he doesn't want to and still be reasonably successful.
What a perfect time to tab back in, Raven, to the best player in Hearthstone, talented Arcanist Fel Barrage. Can confirm, he straight up 3-kept. He was just that hand. Yeah.
Good, okay.
Incantus Flow, Ice Barrier, and he kept the lot.
I thought
Which,
so.
as you were giving the perfect explanation as to why I do kind of concur that is a great idea, because, again, Jarla's clearly done his homework, right? As I was breaking down before, I've played a lot of Fel Demon Hunter. I played it at a time where Mage was extremely popular. I played this matchup a lot. It generally works out that all of your Jace stuff, plus all of your Furies and Chaos Strike and all of that business, just means that you end up 10 to 12 damage short and you have to end the game with Il'gynoth. Take that Il'gynoth out the deck, I don't know where that damage comes from, right? And Viper's doing his best to maximize damage with the Fel Barrage, but I think with that double barrier keep, he's going to find himself in trouble.
And just to reiterate for everyone at home, Viper took the Il'gynoth out of the deck, along with many other players, of course. The Bunny Hopper, Casey, Tice? Yeah, Tice. They all submitted this list. We just haven't really seen it in Grandmasters so far because it's either been banned or not played. Here though, Jarla just plodding along with the quest. Probably quite happy to see the Arcanist down, even though it was at the cost of the Fell Barrage. Probably working out now and dissecting the quest to see if he can cross over the Frost.
I wonder.
Yes, I would expect so. Currently still on part 2, but it's fresh part 2, I believe. Yeah, so he has everything to play still this turn.
So he cannot.
It's just a matter of if and when he's weaving in this arcane with the cram session, right? Like, it's very, you don't want to use cram session as an arcane to actually complete the quest in most situations. So I would not now be surprised. And even then, this is a debate, right? Mana efficiency versus harder card to use, because you could argue that Brain Freeze is a little bit more awkward overall in some spots, but I think he's just going to do the mana efficient thing and use the second flame.
I was going to say, either way, I think Jarla has to kill the Arcanist, because Viper is not beyond just Fell Screen blasting that minion, right? Like, as we said, there's no Il'gynoth, so you can throw that away if you think leaving a minion on board is going to lead to your opponent getting further procs on it.
Right. That makes sense.
Glode time.
Yeah, glide, but only the self-glide. Jace comes straight back, Magtheridon comes straight back. It's the same hand.
Just get the proc, though. Not bad. Viper's been fairly aggressive this game, as seen with the Arcanist Fell Barrage turn. A slightly quicker Jace, he might deem can be enough to get through. Has another Fell Barrage already.
Oh, snap it. Get it played. Alright, let's go lead out with the Spring Water, I suppose. And he's rewarded for it as well by picking up the Incantus Flow to use as his arcane spell there instead. Now has Incantus Flow again to use as another arcane spell, crossing the bar line here with the quest line.
Don't even think about this, Jarla.
What to do? What to do?
You never think.
Time runs out on me.
Oh yeah. Flow again.
It is kind of a weird one, right? Because there's currently no card draw in hand, and you know the potential of Incantus Flow is obviously high, but it's a potential that needs to be unlocked via card draw, and sometimes you just don't have access to that card draw. I think it's a little bit closer than it might immediately look to get third Incantus Flow in hand. Viper gives the smile, of course, but I think if he knew that there was no like Arcane Intellect, Refreshing Spring Water #2 in hand, he might feel a little bit more comfortable. Because yes, Cram Session is card draw, but it's very poor card draw, and it's card draw that spikes in power through the roof later on if you can save it for a couple more turns. Well, Glide really sucks in this situation.
Yeah. With the flows going down, you know, Glide is just going to probably improve your opponent's hand in almost every aspect.
Yes. You are replacing 5 cards, 3 of which are discounted, with 4 cards, all of which are triple discounted.
Is this ever, like, start Chaos Strike, see what you get, maybe it's Fury, and then, no, I was thinking just Fell Barrage and just load up Jace.
Hey, you said it.
Oh, I didn't, damn it, sorry, Fell Barrage. There you go.
Oh, he's going to outcast Glide. I was thinking you could just Chaos Strike and then not outcast Glide, right? Just to get your own hand in that position and not your opponent's. Which is kind of interesting. Alright. Gets back into Arcanist Barrage again, which is one of the most efficient ways of dealing damage that he has available. Does complete the quest as well with Kurtrus, because I do think he wanted to complete quest that turn, right? I think if he's going to have any chance of doing this, that was probably the way to do so.
It's really tough, right? Because there is just, I mean, acrobatics definitely helps, especially after a Kurtrus, but this feels quite slow considering that Jace just got thrown back in the deck and there are 16 cards left. Like, if he doesn't hit Jace, he doesn't win.
Yeah, and this deck, after you play Kurtrus, like, this isn't necessarily Brute Demon Hunter or OTK Demon Hunter where you draw card draw into card draw into card draw into card draw, right? Like, you've squeezed so many different decks into this Demon Hunter that there's just not that much card draw that you can hit sequentially, right? You've got the spell damage pieces, you've got the Fellscreen Blasts, you've got all of these things that can interrupt your potential draws coming out, so you don't necessarily draw a million cards in a single turn this way, but he does have acrobatics for not this turn with the Kurtrus, but the turn after that, which is probably going to be his best way to draw cards overall.
I have proven myself. I demand answers.
You don't cast any of these cards, right? No reason to give your opponent the chance to heal from 30? They cost 0.
Are you bothered about Glide again?
With your 2-card hand? No, not really, right?
I mean, it's even better with a 0-card hand.
I mean,
tell me I'm wrong.
Point, I suppose, yeah.
But yeah, I do generally agree. I'm just trying to think of a reason, right?
Yeah, I don't think I particularly support this idea of shipping the damage. I think this is just giving the option for some healing. Maybe, I suppose, because it's exactly the Kurtrus turn, Jarla's saying, if my opponent heals this turn, he's probably not playing Kurtrus, and I value that over just having the extra fireball in hand for one more turn. I can see some logic in that, I suppose.
Not as cool as my answer, but I'll accept it.
I grow impatient.
And it's tough, right? The biggest problem here really is, okay, you've got Kurtrus, but he's playing it not only just into Mage in general, which is expensive, right? 5 mana, almost 5 mana past do nothing. But the fact that there's just a 7/7 on the board. He just gets hit in the face for 7 if he plays Kurtrus this turn. You can see Viper just can't allow it.
Oh, I hate it. Arcanist Barrage just didn't even go face.
Not even once.
Disgusting.
Card draw will be the main factor here for Jarla. Float!
Shipping this, looking for card draw, didn't find it.
Can always be cheaper.
Yeah. That is, what, 14 damage plus a ping? Can't get the ping in this turn. Just weaves in the ping with the fireball for damage efficiency.
Okay. Kurtrus, I imagine it's going to have to go Chaos Strike, right? To be able to heal for a bit more.
Oh. Yeah. What?
Okay.
Okay.
Another Wall Blades, not terrible. Looks like he's going to lock in Fellscreen for +2. So that's what, 6 heal this turn?
6 heal this turn, yeah.
Job's done.
Going all the way back up to 16. Jarla's going to need some card draw here, or he might find himself in trouble.
Double Ignite. Oh no, okay.
Primordial Studies, Blood Mage Thanos, or Guild Trader does find the Thanos.
The Thanos Ignite face ping.
Play the Ignite, right? This Ignite does 6. Even if you draw this Ignite back again, it deals 7, and you would have to ping your own Thanos to do that, so you can't deal 14. So you ping the Thanos first because you want to draw card draw in that case, not an Ignite. Yes, perfect. Oh, that's Cram Session! That's Fireball! Never mind.
That's lethal.
That's lethal.
That's game. That's series. Jarla takes the victory there, and I think, honestly, Sottle, just that response from Jarla is one of the biggest responses I've seen him from winning a series. And and I think that goes to show that how maybe dicey it might have looked in multiple moments, right? We saw some issues in game 1 with the Rogue. We saw how close and how ridiculous the Mage Mirror ended. I think Jarla might be just a little bit relieved that he won the series, even though he looked comfortable doing so. I think that was just like, yeah, maybe that series felt a bit tougher than it needed to be.
And I think, honestly, it might have something to do with his position in the standings as well, right?
Yeah, pressure, yeah.
you know, the aura of taking things for granted. I don't think Jarla takes anything for granted, but I think the idea of, you know, Jarla, he wakes up, he gets out of bed, he plays Grandmasters, he makes playoffs, right? Like, we kind of just take it as a given at this point. He still had to work for it. He wasn't locked in this time around, so picking up another couple of wins is what he needs to really secure that playoff position, potentially secure that World Championship position. Because we talk a lot. In that series, we didn't even mention it, but there was a potential beat that we could have gone to, is it's 2 players with unfinished business at the World Championships, right? Because it's 2 World Championship runner-ups, to Hunter Ace and Glory, respectively. And I think Jarla is a player of such caliber as well that perhaps a career for him that doesn't end with the World Championship might just be underperforming, because that's just how good he is, unbelievably.
I can only dream to be that good.
Exactly. I mean, sometimes